welcome back to my 5th grade English Language Arts class. Today is going to be our 3rd lesson on figurative language. Our first lesson, we talked about similes and metaphors, and our second lesson we talked about personification and onomatopoeias. And this week, we are going to work our way into hyperboles and alliteration. So we're just kind of building on those other 4 types of figurative language, and we are going to add 2 more today. There are also other types of figurative language that are out there, but we are adding them slowly and working on them 2 at a time, just because this way, I think that it is easier for you to remember the meanings of them and the ways that they are, like the examples, I think it's easier to focus on too. And by the end of all of our figurative language, we will be going over all of the figurative language at one place. So it will all come together at some point, but right now, let's just focus on our 3rd lesson with hyperboles and alliteration. And so I want you to know what your objectives are for this lesson. I think that it's good for you to know what you need to be doing while you're working on your worksheets, what you need to be evaluating yourself on. So students will be able to determine the meaning of figurative language when it is used in text, specifically similes, metaphors, onomatopoeias, personification, alliteration, and hyperboles. What this means is you're going to be able to recognize what type of figurative language you are using that's being used when you're doing your worksheets. Because what I want you to be able to do is when we go to a text, like you're reading a novel, I want you to know what type of figurative language is being used. And also, students will be able to determine the type of figurative language used in context. So, not only will you be able to determine the meaning, but you'll be able to determine the type. So, there's 2 things there. And today, I'm going to have a Google slide like we did for the last lesson, and you're also going to have 2 different worksheets. But I just wanted to start today off with some questions again, because I love having class discussions, as you know, and I like when we get to talk about things. So, what do we remember from our last lesson? And what is it that we talked about? We've already talked about this. Tell me what figurative language is. Tell me what a metaphor is. Tell me what a simile is. What are these 2 types of figurative language doing? What is an onomatopoeia? What is personification? What do these 2 types of figurative language use? Or what is key when looking for these 2 types of figurative language? That's right. It's the sound that they make, or it's like a noise for onomatopoeia. And personification, that's when it's something that a human can do, but it's a thing doing it. That's an easy way for me to remember what those two are. So now let's talk about the new topics for today. I want you to tell me, what is it that you think alliteration is? And then I want you to tell me, what is a hyperbole? What do you think a hyperbole is? It's kind of a tongue twister to say hyperbole. So, now I have some Google Slides I'm going to pull up on the board, and I want us to dive into what alliteration and hyperboles are. So, alliteration, what it is it is the repetition of the same letter or sound in a sentence. So, let's look at an example. Our example of alliteration is she sells seashells by the seashore. That is our example. So notice they all start with S, and they all have like the same sound at the beginning. She sells seashells by the seashore. That is our alliteration. So, what is a hyperbole? Well, a hyperbole is exaggerated statements or claims not to be taken literally. So, it's something that you say, but it's not a literal what it actually does, if that makes sense. So, our example, my backpack weighs a ton. Your backpack cannot weigh a ton. A semi, however, like a big truck, that weighs tons, literally. But your backpack cannot weigh a ton. What that hyperbole means is that it just weighs a lot. It probably hurts your back. Your backpack just weighs a lot. It doesn't really weigh a ton. It's just people say phrases like that because they want to exaggerate what it means. So let's look at our examples. So our first example is frogs frequently frolic in fresh water. Can you tell me what type of example of figurative language this is? And then I can smell pizza from a mile away. So, our first one is going to be alliteration. And our second one is going to be an hyperbole. Because in one, frogs frequently frolic in fresh water. They all start with F, and it all sounds the same at the beginning. And then the I can smell pizza from a mile away. You can't literally smell the pizza from a mile away. It just means that you can smell pizza and it's far, like, you can smell the pizza, but you can't literally smell it from a mile away. So now, we're going to do stations again today, and I have 2 worksheets that we're going to do. You can work with a partner, you can work by yourself, you can consult with your partners in your groups, you can talk to them about what I think I got this. It never hurts to get feedback from your peers. I love it when you guys talk to each other and when you ask each other for feedback. It is so important to me. So, our first worksheet is going to be over onomatopoeia, similes, personification, and metaphors. So, the directions in this are to read the sentences and determine what type of figurative language it is. Is it an onomatopoeia, a simile, metaphor, or personification? Write it in the box. So our 4 types are: the sausages were sizzling in the pan. The car danced across the icy road. He is a shining star. He was like a lion in the fight. So those are the 4 that you need to determine what type of figurative language it is. It's one of those 4 that are listed in the directions. And I also challenge you, try to write your own personification sentence. Write a sentence and add personification, figurative language into your sentence. And then our second group is going to be working on alliteration and hyperboles. So in this, the directions are: read the sentences and determine what type of figurative language it is. Is it alliteration or hyperbole? And then write it in the box. So our 4 sentences are: Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. This bag weighs a ton. That man is as tall as a house. Sheep should sleep in a shed. And then I challenge you, try writing your own alliteration sentence. If you want to, try writing a sentence with a bunch of words with the same letter that sound the same and make somewhat sense. And then you guys can go ahead and get in your stations. And all right, guys, let's come back together. And since we are almost done with our lesson today and class is almost over, if you did not finish either one of those worksheets, it will be homework. But I do want to know what type of figurative language you found for a couple of these. So on your alliteration and hyperbole worksheet, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Is that alliteration or a hyperbole? Correct. It is alliteration. Great job. So the P's, almost all the words start with P. They all sound the same at the beginning. It is alliteration. And that is going to be all the time that we have for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and see you next time.